All right, so I think we can get started. Okay, so here's the first passage. This is out of test 5. Okay, so pretty much what I do first, I like to read through the whole entire thing, like just everything up until the question, and then I answer that question, and then I move on. So paleontologists are using modern technology to gain a greater understanding of the distant past. With the aid of computer-based technology, CT scanning, and 3D printing, researchers are able to create accurate models of prehistoric fossils. These models have expanded researchers' knowledge of ancient species and swear to advance the field of paleontology in years to come. All right, so at this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. Fossils provide paleontologists with convenient way. Oh, can you guys hear me right? I just want to make sure. Okay, cool. All right, so fossils provide paleontologists with a convenient way of estimating the age of the rock in which fossils. So should the writer make this addition here? All right, I'm gonna let you guys try to answer it first. But the main reason, yeah. All right, so Kevin, you got it right. So pretty much you don't need it in there because it's already saying that these models have expanded. And this is only talking about one specific example. So you can rule out A and B, and you can if you read the two answer choices, it's not really undermining as it's giving more information to back it up. So it should be C because it's not directly related to the main point of the paragraph. All right. And then these models have expanded researchers' knowledge of ancient species and swear to advance the field of paleontology in the years to come. Um, so, so you can kind of make the argument that for most of them, you can probably get away with saying that okay, swear, vow, and subscribe and promise, or swear, vow, and promise kind of mean the same thing. Well, however, in this one, when you talk about that, subscribe wouldn't make sense if you replace it and subscribe to advance the view of advance the field of paleontology in the years to come. Doesn't make sense. And swearing is kind of way too strong. That's why you can rule out A and B. Now between C and D, what do you guys think? Or you can answer in chat or Discord. All right, so if you guys have no idea, so pretty much swear, the overall meaning of swear is okay, except the word itself does not make sense in terms of the whole sentence. So vowing wouldn't make too much sense. Um, and promise would probably be your best bet, except if you replace it. These models have expanded researchers' knowledge of ancient species and promise to advance the field of paleontology in the years to come. Because vowing is not really the correct term. And this is kind of one of those weird questions where you kind of have to replace it as you go and just see what makes the best sense. All right, number 3. The writer is considering deleting the underlined sentence. Should it be kept or deleted? All right, CT scanners use X-ray maps to surface the fossil. A 3D printer then builds a polymer base, which is okay. So this is all talking about the base. This is giving examples. This is talking about the base, how it's built. And then here, this is the part that he's considering deleting. Whereas the head of an ordinary computer printer moves back and forth while printing ink onto the paper, the corresponding part of a 3D printer moves in multiple dimensions while squirting out thin layers of melted polynomial base. All right, so what do you guys think? Using the context, so pretty much the only way to answer this, you have to use the context of the sentences above and then the next sentence to get if you want to delete or keep it. Any takers on what the answer should be? Okay. All right. So you can rule out C and D because it does not contradict, and it should be in there because it's giving more of a. It pretty much illustrates and is supporting the main point up here, and then the plastic quickly hardens. Nowhere's that mentioned up here if you were to delete that, so you have to keep it. And it's not really explaining why X-rays and or it doesn't really explain why X-ray are used in CT scanners. Moreover, it's just illustrating. So that's why B is the correct answer for this one. Okay. These ones are usually easy for 4. So the plastic hardens quickly. It allows the printer to move back and forth. So does that really make sense? So to get these questions right, you just have to either replace it or know the context of what it's speaking. So what do you think the answer is going to be? Yeah, all right, so C is the correct answer for which. Because when you replace in terms of the sentence, it makes perfect sense. The plastic hardens quickly, which allows the printer to build layers of the final model. So yeah, C should be the correct answer. All right, moving on. Usually when you see, so if it's a page break like this, and then the first thing you see is this, that means you're gonna have to replace sentence. You're gonna have to move sentences around. So don't be too caught off by that. It just gives you a heads up. All right. And what I do recommend is if it's like this, most of the time it would be you could skip over it. However, if you see like a main idea or which one corresponds with the main idea or something like that, you should probably read all of this. But yeah, if you see like something like this, it's question 5. You can your best bet's probably to skip over these sentences, not waste time. So you can start right at sentence 3. A team led by Drexel University professor Ken Love. All right, and don't waste your time worrying about the names if you can't pronounce them. Is making models of dinosaur bones, 1/10 the bones the original size, in order to learn how they fit together. Okay, yeah, this is another one that's pretty self-explanatory. Is it as long as you replace it correctly, or if you already think it sounds right, then you can just go for that. So, what do you think the right answer is? Yeah, A is pretty good in terms of sentence because you don't these ones don't make sense, and in order for learning, that also doesn't make sense. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm telling you, once you get a hang of it, it's pretty easy. These ones are fairly easy. Okay. In the past, such research was limited by the weight and bulk of fossils as well as its preciousness and fragility. All right. So, so first, to get these questions right, you have to identify the subject of the sentence, the subject and the object. So, what do you think the subject is? Yeah, since fossils is a plural, what should the answer be? Yeah. All right, it's there. Cool. Yeah, because it cannot be it is, and this is the wrong form of there, and then it's is singular. All right, and see this is what I was talking about earlier. So you're gonna have to move around sentence 2. So, in many cases, scientists have to. Okay, so pretty much you're gonna have to move this sentence around. All right, but now 3D scale models can be rearranged with ease, which is a huge boon to scientists. All right. So which way do you think you'll make the best sentence? So you have to get something where it's contradictory, and then it's moving on saying but now. All right. So to start off, you can go where it is now. Does it make sense where it is now? Right. In terms of this, one significant benefit of 3D printing technology is its ability to create scale reproductions of fossils. But now, no, you see that doesn't make sense. So you can rule out A. And then before sentence one, that wouldn't even make sense because this is a good introduction to the paragraph, but now is never used for introduction to paragraph. Okay, after sentence four, in the past, such research was limited by the weight and bulk of, okay. Well, you see how this goes with this? So sentence 4 and 5 have to stick together. So that's why you cannot split it like that. So that's why C is wrong. So it should be D. Yeah, and if you read it, so in many cases, scientists had to rearrange bones virtually using artist rendering. But now, 3D scale models can be rearranged with ease, which is a huge boon to scientists. It makes perfect sense and it flows. All right, number 8. Because CT scanners can map. Alright, so usually, like I said, you don't have to read all of this if you're just changing. But sometimes when you're using transition words, it's good to know what transition words go together. It's also good to know like the overall context of this. Because CT scanners can map objects that are impossible to excavate, CT scanning and 3D printing can also be used to reproduce fossils that scientists cannot observe firsthand. By contrast, researchers from National it cannot be by contrast because you're not contrasting anything, right? So it's pretty much providing an example. So nonetheless, and besides, they're two of the same. So if you just know what your two are, if you just know that these two are the same pretty much, so if you have, there's a whole list I can post on Discord, but there's a list where it maps out which transition words go together to form the main thing. I'll post it on Discord later. But it should be D because it's giving an example. For example, researchers from the National Museum of Brazil has relied on this technology. All right, and while we're at it, you could just, as you're reading that, does this make sense at all? Has relied on. So what do you think the answer is going to be? By contrast, researchers from the National Museum of Brazil, any takers to what the answer should be? Okay, so if you're saying it's um you don't want to look at this. I see where you're coming from, but you don't want to look at fossilized because has relied on would correspond to something in above. And if you overall, if you read it, it wouldn't make sense. Has relied on. So it should be just relied on. I do get, yeah, because it has to be relied, but has relied on is kind of excessive. If you read it like this, for example, researchers from the National Museum of Brazil relied on this technique. Yeah, see, has relied on would be something that already happened in the past, or like has relied on this study for this, and they start modeling something after that. Okay, that's when you're gonna have to use that. But I think they just relied on this technique to study a fossilized skeleton. So they just use this technique. That's all they're saying. So you can. These are all futures. So it's not C and D. Yeah. Uh, any questions so far? Nobody. All right. Cool. Which choice most effectively combines the underlined sentences? So these ones are pretty easy. You could just read these two sentences and usually find the redundant part of it. So the fossil was too delicate to be removed from the rock. Because the fossil is delicate nature. All right, you can just remove this because this is redundant because it's mentioned in that. So what do you think the right answer is going to be? I'll give you a second to read it. Okay, whatever. So, which choice most effectively combines? So you're looking for something that's like this. The fossil could not be removed from the fossil could not be removed from the rock on account of it being too delicate. Okay, wrong. You cannot have a semicolon like that. Okay, B. The team thought the fossil was too delicate to remove from the rock, and their next decision was to dig up a block of stone around the fossil and bring it. Oh, you said C? Yeah. All right, so C, yeah. B is a bit too long, and yeah. So C is the best answer because the shortest answer. The way to really, the best trick out of all of this is 95% of the time, the shortest answer is the best. So yeah, the fossil was too delicate to be removed from the rock. So the team dug up. Yeah, perfect. Has everything that we mentioned here, and it excludes the part that we said was redundant. All right, 11. Examining the model, the researchers determined that one had found new species. Okay, this is pretty stupid. As long as you just read it. Yeah, it cannot be one, and it would correspond with one, so that also cannot be. He or she would also be singular, so that cannot be. It has to be they. This one's pretty self-explanatory. All right, cool. I don't know what that's. I don't know what's going on with the computer. All right, so we're moving on to the next passage. So, anything that was confusing in the last passage that you'd want to talk about? Oh, right now would be a great time. All right, cool. Nothing. Like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory. And usually for this, what I say for timing on these, probably about 30 seconds. You can knock off most of them, except for like stuff like this. You can allocate like maybe 45 to a minute. But yeah, sub 30 seconds on these ones. And yeah, it should be pretty easy. Okay, Thomas Nast, the preceding card is. All right, so usually I like to read, like how I mentioned in the one above. I like to read this because it gives me some context to what this should be. Stuff in pictures. Legend has it that the corrupt politician William Voss tweeted once. Use these words. Okay, so this is talking about what he tweeted and who Thomas Nast was and who William Voss was. All right. So as a result, tweets. Okay, this is pretty easy. All right. So as a result, Tweed's attempt to silence the artist failed. So as a result, would not. You don't need it. Yeah, you don't need as a result, and therefore you don't need. Oh, as a result, because it's pretty much redundant. If you read it like this, okay. So furthermore and therefore, you could pretty much rule out because they mean they go to the same thing off of that one list. And as a result, Tweed's attempt to silence the artist failed. In NAS cartoonists or NAS cartoons published in magazines like Harper's began playing roles. Yeah, it should be D because you can delete these. So if you read, if you just take this out. If you read it like this, then it would make sense. It would still make sense. So therefore, you don't need that because it says. And also in the previous sentence, Tweed once used these words while ordering. Okay, when he was bribing, and the artist who got that to end corruption. So they already talk about the result right here. They already say the main result of what happened. So you don't need as a result. Because this is further elaborating on that. Like 13. Which choice most effectively combines the underlined sentences? All right, like I said again, pick out what's redundant in this and then find the best way to combine it. There were powerful organizations in the 1860s and 1870s, the organizations were known as political machines. Okay. So for this one, you don't need to say what they're. You don't need to say that. All right. So what do you think the answer should be? Yeah, D is the best answer because shorter is always best, and it also makes sense. Usually, sometimes will throw like a trick answer in there because like if they feel people are catching on with the shorter is best, they'll throw a trick answer which is going to be also short, but it's not going to make sense. Like C is short, but it doesn't make sense. All right, moving on. Okay. These political machines were able to pack legislature and courts with handed pick. Okay. Purchasing votes. A form of okay. All right, you said it's A, and yeah, that makes sense because all right. So another trick is usually in the writing, being is never right. When you see being, the answer is most likely going to be wrong. No matter how right it sounds, it's most likely going to be wrong. These all are way too long. Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, did not mean to do that. Boss tweets Terry Hall Group, which controlled New York City in the 1860s, stole more than 30 million. Okay. So what do you think the answer is going to be for 15? You guys are saying B. Nothing. So, did you say no change? You said D. Okay. Well, the reason that D is wrong is because every time you have a date, you need to have a comma. All right. So 15, it should actually be B because this one would include one too many commas. This one has one too many commas, like right here, uh, right here, and then right there, and then yeah. So you need the comma right after the date. So that's why B is correct. And the only reason that uh, A is wrong is because it doesn't make sense. It's not two independent clauses. And it's also, there's no ending hyphen anywhere else. All right, 16. The writer is considering adding following. Okay, so for usually to get these right, you have to include, you have to just read the previous sentence and then the next following sentences to get a rough idea of what it is. Okay. Okay, stole more than 30 million, the equivalent of more than 365 million today. Okay, so nowhere in the sentences are they talking about the elections. So nowhere is it talking about that. So then you can rule out A, you can rule out B, and yeah, C should be the right answer because it does blur the focus and it's not undermining anything once again. All right. Yeah, so 17. Tammany Hall was so powerful and corrupt that okay, that comma I do believe is in the wrong spot. So 17. Yeah, comma is definitely in the wrong spot. But the New York Times, okay. So for these ones, usually you just have to know the placement in which it should be and how it should be read. Like read it the way it is. So Tammany Hall was so powerful and corrupt that take a pause every time you see a comma and see if it makes sense. The New York Times commented. Oh, you said D? So corrupt that the New York Times commented, no, you don't need that you don't need that extra pause right there. It should be C. Yeah, yeah. All right, you're fine. Yeah, but it should be C because this is all And one, if you read it, so Tammany Hall was so powerful and corrupt that the New York Times commented, and you always need a comma before the quote. So that's another dead giveaway. So you could have automatically ruled out A and D, and then this would have had one too many commas. So that's why B is wrong. Okay, moving on. Given the extent of Tweet's power, it is remarkable that a single cartoonist could have played such. Okay, one of the artist's most famous images show 18 is A. Alright, one of the artist's most famous images show. Yeah, alright, so it should be A. Yeah, A is the correct answer. Yeah, because it's the simplest, it's the best, shortest answer. Alright, cool. Yeah, so this is all redundant, redundant, redundant. Right. The bag of money of his in place of his head. So, which is the most relevant information to the paragraph? Alright, so what do you think is going to provide the most relevant information? Alright, so to get this one, you pretty much have to see which one would make sense in it. So you're saying it's not A or B, like many other cartoonists, one that was published in Harper's Weekly. Yeah, that wouldn't make sense, because nowhere is that mentioned, nowhere is it talked about. So we need something that's going to connect. Uh, B would also not make sense because Tweed's escape from prison, nowhere is not even talking about prison. So which kind of resembles how he is? Actually, semicolon would be fine, except the rest of it does not make sense. Because wait, no, yeah, you're right. Semicolon wouldn't be fine for this one for A, and it also wouldn't be fine. Yeah, yeah, because they're not too independent. At first, I thought they were. But anyways, between C and D, what do you think is the best answer? Which one resembles it? So pretty much for this, you just have to get a general idea of how this person is. Another featured. As long as I can count votes, what are you going to do about it? So if you look at the next sentence, it should give you a pretty good indication of what the answer should be. You said D. Had an image of a perfect. Yeah, that makes pretty good sense because one depiction that omits Tweed's signature hat, that does not make sense at all. So that's why that's the wrong answer. And that's why D should be right. Yeah, and usually you can get away with skipping all of this because it's the last one on there. Then you can eventually Tweed and his gang were persecuted. All right, so first of all, persecuted. If you there's two obvious definition words. All right, so there's prosecuted, which is used in terms of law, and persecuted, which is used in terms of religion. So they weren't religiously persecuted. Like if you were of a certain religion, and like let's take in history for example, like how Christians or like Mormons or someone was persecuted during like the 1700s. So that's that way. And they had religious persecution. So that's why A, B, and C are both wrong. Prosecuted is used in terms of law because they were charged with that and sent to jail. So it should be D. Does that make sense, or is there any misconceptions? All right, we're good. All right. In 1875, Tweeds escaped from jail and fled to Spain unwittingly, and unwittingly brought on the final pinnacle. Okay. You're saying 21 is A? Yeah, I would agree because it cannot be brings. It cannot be bringing. Yeah, because this one wouldn't make sense. This one wouldn't make sense. Has brought. Don't use has there. Yeah, so it should be A. All right, 22. One final pinnacle for a power. All right, so to get these ones right, you have to really know what the definition of pinnacle, culmination, and apex are. Right, so culmination is pretty much the highest point. No, pinnacle is the highest point, right? And same with the apex. Apex, climax, pinnacle, culmination all mean the same thing. So triumph is the only one that doesn't mean the same thing. And it makes sense in terms of the sentence. So that's why B is the correct answer. Yeah, and if you see that that's the last part, you can always skip this. All right, so that one was definitely a little bit yeah, I mean they're fair. Questions like 22 are fairly common though. Like I'm surprised we haven't seen any more on this one. But as long as you know, like as long as you have a basic understanding of what these words mean, you should be fine. And if you don't, okay, say you knew what apex, you know what pinnacle means, and you know what apex means. So you're between culmination and triumph. If you don't know what triumph, or if you don't know what triumph or culmination means, you can replace in the sentence one final culmination for the power of political criteria. Okay, that does not make sense at all. But one final triumph. So that's pretty much saying that he's had one final like hurrah for his powerful political cartoons. That's another way to check. All right. Okay. If you see that this is usually the first one, you can skip down. So at best, it is at its best. At it is best. That does not make sense. All right. And okay, so what do you think the right answer is going to be? B. Okay. Why would you say B? All right. So yeah, you guys got it. It should be B because it's not possessive. Okay. One, it's never possessive like that. Two, it is not. It is, but it has to be singular. And there wouldn't make sense because it's not singular. That's plural. Does that make sense? Yeah. Good on that. All right. Which choice most effectively combines the underlined sentences? So same thing like what we've been doing. The idea is obvious and very attractive. Obscure model photography may be available with low expense. Okay, so this one you just have to read the answer choices and find which one's the best answer. Okay, so with the idea being obviously very attractive, an obscure method of photography may be. No, that doesn't make sense. It has the wrong subject, the wrong objects in the wrong order. Idea is obviously very attractive. Yeah, because you need that colon there because it's giving the example and telling you what it is. So that's why B checks out. Okay. Yeah. This one does not make sense. And this one also doesn't make sense. So yeah, B is the right. Okay, yeah, what's your question? What rule? Okay, shorter is better. Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense on most of them. However, if you look at this one, okay, you say you go for the shorter one. So which one do you think the shorter one is on all of this? Just pick one. Which do you think is the shortest? B. Yeah, but also you could argue that C is equally short. If you read it, an obscure method of photography may be made available to many at little expense, and the idea is obviously very attractive. This is okay, except it's the wrong way to combine the sentences. Colon is the best way because it's giving the example, right? Does that help anyway? Yeah, if you have three long answers, then you can always use shorter is best. But for this one, you just have to know where that has to go and which one's the best way to combine them. Okay, the homepage. Okay, yep. Those who have seen space consider it vital. However, that group may not be large enough with just 14 days to go. Okay, yep. So for again the transition words, you have to look at these two statements and see is it contradicting? Is it giving? Is it drawing a conclusion? All right. Yeah. So it pretty much negates what it's saying there. And also another way to look at this, these three are all drawing conclusions. So I cannot. So you can't have three of the same. Yeah, it should be no change. Artists such as these Brooklyn performers may find that crowdfunding problems exacerbates problems that already exist. Okay, work is easily understood and appreciated is supported. So what do you think should be the right answer for this one? 26 is B. Yep, because A has too many commas, so you pretty much have you're overloaded on commas. That's why B is the wrong answer. I mean, A is the wrong answer. B is the correct answer because it has only the one comma where it's supposed to be. Which checks out. This one is wrong because again, don't need a comma right there. And hyphens, although would make sense, except it wouldn't make sense in terms of this. Hyphens are usually right, except it wouldn't make sense when you're talking about this because it's not really explaining. The writer is considering adding the following sentence. Crowdfunding tends to attract contributors from a wide variety of professional fields. Should the writer add this? Again, to get these ones, just look at the previous sentence, look at the next sentence, see if it makes sense, see if the main idea. So you're thinking it should be kept. Okay, what's your backing on that? What's your reasoning for that? I mean, it's not, there has to be some reasoning behind why you said A or B. It cannot be just like a shot at the dark. All right, so you said because there's info. Here's where I'm going to say you don't need this in because it does not back up anything. So it says work that is easily understood and appreciated is supported, while more complex goes unnoticed. And then here it says time that could be used to spend creating art. So this talks about arts and contributors. All right, so crowdfunding is only one example or it's pretty much the main thing that they're talking about, right? But it's not really flowing with what's here already. Although it does provide information, it does not reinforce. It's not reinforcing anything, so you can rule that out. Okay, it's not giving more information about people who donate. That doesn't help. No, because it fails to account the project. No, because yeah, it's loosely connected. I do agree that there's more information. However, it's not really flowing with those two sentences. Okay, you need to read the passage. Let me. I wouldn't say you need to read the passage. You can just look at these two. If you want, I can link the practice test onto this. All right, give me a second. I'll link the practice test. Or do you want me to do that now, or do you want me to do that after this? All right, I'll just do it now. Oh, you said after? All right. Okay, it's in the practice test section. Moving on. Okay. In addition, audience may contain many free riders. Okay, so conversely, thus, in addition. 28 C. Yeah, no problem. Um, let's see. You think it's C. I would argue against it because conversely and however mean the same thing. So they're both talking about contradicting, right? Uh, and then thus is drawing a conclusion. So in addition, I would say that's your best answer because it's giving more, it's providing an example. Like, for example, think about it in that terms. Like, for instance, for example, that would probably be how you should go about it. Does that make sense? Uh, let's see. May contain many free riders. Okay, so one of them that you can rule out is D, because there's no comma here. What do you think it should be? You said B. All right, and so we can rule out A, correct? Since that's wrong. Yeah, and who? So the way to answer this is one of the strategies from the Black Book. So if you ask yourself, who did that? It's the free riders. So you need who in there. Yeah, so I strongly advise you go ahead and look at the Black Book if you have the opportunity to. I mean, if you have time, like about a couple months, you should probably check that out. They have some really good strategies in there. Yeah, that's why B should be wrong because not making wouldn't make sense. Okay. Ironically, the success of crowdfunding may weaken the overall funding for art projects. 30B, and you said 30D. Um, he or she loves, that's never right. Okay. because you don't need he or she. He or she would be simplified into they, which is the correct answer. Does that make sense? All right, yeah. Okay, again, we're gonna have to change around some sentences, so don't be too worried. Don't fret when you see that. It should be fine. Just take it logically. Okay, by subverting the preassumption that money is used for a project, the playwright showed that our work. Okay, so give the subject, then you have your answer to this. Okay, I'll be back in 1 second. I'm just gonna go grab some water. Okay, so what do you mean by these questions need to translate? Could you please clarify on that? Okay, so 31, you guys are saying C or A? Okay, so I don't think it's no change, right? Because our does not fit in. Yeah, so it should be. Are you guys saying C? Yeah, I would agree. It should be her. All right, so 32. So all you're gonna do is just say sentence 2 where it should be placed. Sentence 2 is this one. It should be placed here. Okay, so sentence 2. So it's saying, though the price for her tickets is higher than. Okay, so it's saying it's talking about her price, and she presented a total cost. Okay, so this has to go before. So 3 has to go before 2. So it's gonna have to do quite a bit of rearranging. Yeah, because 3 and 4 go with each other, so it cannot be either that one or that one. And it cannot be this one because it doesn't make sense where it is right now. So it has to be, yeah, 3D. See, because if you replace it, so the result of her calculation was the minimum donor price, and only the donors who paid at least the minimum ticket price were allowed to attend the performance. Though the price for her tickets was higher than the tickets for comparable shows, it was still affordable for most theatergoers and reflected the real cost of performance, which makes perfect sense as it's flowing. But do you guys get that? Or is there something I need to go over with that? Are we good? All right, you had a question. Okay, all right, you're good. We're good. Here's a lovely graph. Come back to that. Okay, so graphic. So which choice offers accurate representation or accurate interpretation of the data in the graph? Okay, so the project category with the lowest amount of money raised was also the most successful funded project. So projected category with the lowest amount of money raised. So money raised is here. Lowest amount was dance. Okay, it was the most successfully funded. Successfully funded. Yeah, A checks out. Um, One thing I do advise though is still go through the other three answers to make sure that your first one's right. But yeah, A is fine for now. Uh, Project funded with the highest average pledge amount was the most successfully funded. No, we already determined that. We already determined that dance was the most successfully funded, so it cannot be B. Okay? With the lowest pledge was the amount who raised the most money. Was it publishing? No, publishing came in at second. So that's why C is wrong. And the projected category with the highest pledge was also the amount with the most money raised. No? Oh, what did you not get? Oh, do I need a pause? Am I going too fast? Okay. Which one do you want me to re-explain? Why C is wrong? Okay. The projected category with the lowest average pledge. So here's your pledge. So average. Your lowest average pledge is publishing. Was the project that raised the most money. So most money would mean it's first. However, publishing came second. Games raised the most money. This one raised the most. Because this is money raised graph, this is average pledge, this is successful rate. A, however, says the one with the lowest money raised was dance. Because right here, look at the money raised. Was the most successfully funded one. And dance, look at the funded. They were the most funded. Does that make sense? Yeah, alright. Cool, cool. Alright, last passage. Investigative journalism and evolving American tradition. Alright, cool. Oh, great. We're greeted right off the bat with one of these. Okay, sentence 3 should be placed where? Alright, so if you're greeted with this, you have to read the whole paragraph. There's no getting around it. The reason facing lower print circulation and diminished advertising revenue major newspapers have reduced or eliminated investigative resources. Newspapers, the traditional nurturing ground for investigative journalism, have been hit especially hard. Okay. Alright. What do you think the answer should be? I'm gonna let you guys answer this one. So you're thinking it's C or D? I would agree it's either one of those two. So which one's the best one? You're saying it's D, deleted. Uh, no, because you need it in there because no. So the whole thing is talking about investigative journalism, right? Newspapers, however, is never mentioned before in either one of these two or down here. So therefore, it cannot be deleted. It has to be placed after sentence one. And if you read it like this, The precipitous decline of print journalism as a viable profession has exacerbated long-held concerns about the state of investigative reporting in the United States. Newspapers, the traditional nurturing ground for investigative journalism, have been hit especially hard with the widespread availability of free news online, facing lower print circulation. All right, and see, it goes back to that because it's facing lower print circulation. So, what is? If you delete it, what is facing the lower print circulation? Nowhere does it mention that newspapers are facing lower print circulation because of them being hit online. So, therefore, C is the best answer. All right, cool. Okay, so it is not difficult to understand why the understaffed publication might feel the pressure to cut teams of investigative reporters. Their work is expensive and time consuming. What do you think? 35C? I would disagree. Yeah, alright. I'll let you think on this one. But I don't think it's C. If you're thinking B, yeah, I would agree. B makes sense because semicolon, you don't really need it. Okay. Colon, however, you need it because it's giving the example. It's because their work is expensive and time consuming. That's why that's right. Taking on public interest. Investigative journalism often. Okay. Yeah, this is one of those weird ones where it's transition words that you might not be familiar with. Taking on the public's interest. You see, if it was like that, then taking on the public's interest, that would make sense. However, A does not make sense right now. Overtaking the public interest. I don't think it's overtaking. So yeah, I don't think C, because you're not overtaking their interest. You have no idea. Yeah, taking off from the public interest. No. Press elimination would lead you to B. So that's the correct answer. That's because undertaken in, so that pretty much means you're focused on the public's interest. Investigative journalism involves original long form reporting on illegal activities. Okay. Yeah, this one is one of those weird ones where you might not ever see again, but you can never be too sure. But undertaken in the public interest makes no sense because it wouldn't be taking on, it would have to be taking on the public's interest. Overtaking the public interest does not make sense. Taking off from the public interest also doesn't make sense. Okay. Often long form reporting on such topics as illegal activities, street crimes. Don't you use an idiom? Yeah. Uh, okay. What do you think it is for this one? This one, the answer is more obvious compared to the other one. Do you guys have any idea? We need to what? All right. All right. Okay, all right. If you don't know, okay, so illegal activities would go with street crime. Business scandals would go with corporate wrongdoing, and abuse of government would go with political corruption. Therefore, these are all redundant because they're saying the same exact thing. Do not need that. Delete it. You good on that one? This book the writer is considering adding the following sentence. Make a condition here. I'll publicize. Okay, so New Yorker helped publicize the mistreatment of Iraqi prisoners of the U.S. prison Abu Ghraib during the Iraq War. In these other cases, exposure. You said you have to keep. What do you mean keep? Oh, you mean make the addition there or delete it? Oh, you must add. Okay, so if you think it's add, which one do you think it is? Okay, well, I'm going to argue that you do not need it in there because it's going to blur the main focus. It's both out of place. Okay, B's wrong. A's wrong. Let me just show you why in a second. All right, so here it's saying in 1954. Well, here is 1974, and here's 2004. So it is chronologically out of order, one. And two, it is not even relative to the main paragraph. So C would have to make the best sense. Because even if you were to add it in, this is way too far down. Because this is already talking about Nixon in 1974, and this is talking about the New Yorker in 2004. No, you do use chronological order. If you were, this one, 1954, is way before 1974. It's 20 years before. So therefore, it would have to have been up above rather than placed down right here. Yeah, you need the order of it. In the other cases, exposure from reporters that serves as important blockade or scolding or scolding. Okay, this is pretty stupid. It's pretty easy too. Okay. Um, what do you guys think? You're saying C? Okay, so we've ruled out A and B, but I'm not sure you guys are getting the reason why. Right? Yeah, it should actually be D. Because drag on or reproof of. Okay, blockade to or scolding. That does not make sense. You cannot have to or like that. You cannot have to or like that. And on or you cannot have like that. So that's basic grammar rules. Khan Academy does a good job of explaining that. But pretty much, you cannot have it like that. It has to be deterrent or rebuke too. Right? And also, you gotta have a basic understanding of what I mean, not necessarily. You don't really need to know exactly what deterrent and rebuke mean. Just have a general idea of what it is. Yeah, it is grammar. This is from the grammar. Worrisome. The decline of traditional media, print media, could not suggest that, which is the most likely, which most effectively suggests that the end of journal, investigative journal, is a real possibility but could be prevented. Okay, so which word do you think would say? Okay, could not wouldn't make sense, right? Need not. That means there is a possibility of it happening. However, it's not. It doesn't have to end. Will not end. That's just saying it won't end, or has it won't ever end. Yeah, and then must not end. It won't make sense. So B. Good on that one. Yeah. No. Okay, moving on. Since there are no questions, which the following best effectively sets up the examples in the next following sentences. Okay, so here's talking about non-profit enterprises such as have fill the void. So they're filling the void of that in freelance, newly funded by profits, make extensive use of social media. Okay, all right. So although many newsrooms have reduced their staff, some still employ and investigate. Okay, so nowhere's it talking about really employing them. That's why A is wrong. Okay. Investigative journalism also declined between. Okay, that does not make sense with any of the following examples. According to the Paul Research Center, people get their national and international news from internet more than. That's not really talking about the next examples. And yeah, D should be the best answer. Talking about changing times. So here's the next stuff that's going to happen, especially with the use of social media. So that means there's new stuff. Okay, nonprofit enterprises such as. Okay, this one's pretty easy. You said C. No, because you don't need a colon there. Because part before is not even an independent sentence. Yeah, should be A. Should be A because yeah, it's fine the way it is. You don't need commas there, and there's no colon needed because it's not independent clause, although it's giving an example. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Makes sense for rolling. All right, last two questions. That help me investigate a project. For example, solicited readers to submit their information. Okay, yeah, this one's also pretty self-explanatory. What do you think it's going to be? A. Yeah, that's the right answer. Because giving example is providing example. You're not contradicting to it. You're not drawing conclusions. You're not being contradictory. That's why that's the right answer. Okay, last question. Okay, far from and investigate. Okay, you said C for the last one. Yeah. Uh, although it's shorter, it also has the best order placement. The best of all of them. So, C. Well, that's it for practice test 5. So, um, I think later today I'll do a math one, or maybe tomorrow around this time we can do a math one if you guys are up for that. But other than that, is there any questions? All right. Well, thanks for coming. See you guys.